Yo, what's up? It's Lloyd. This is the Neutral Zone Trap Podcast, episode number 4. I'm back. Holla at your boy. I know it's been a while. Haven't it's been kind of busy as of late, school work, lots of stuff, but who cares? We're back on. It's Sandeep, it's Jeevan. What's up, guys?
Going on? Long time.
What's up, Lloyd?
What's up? What's up? All right, let's get it started. First topic. I know it's been a while since we've done the podcast, so let's get started actually on them Jays because the MLB season is going to be starting pretty soon here. So, first, let's start off with the injuries to the Jays. Springer, um, Springer's out with an oblique strain, but the big one I think is the Kirby Yates one. He's gonna be needing Tommy John surgery. He was a big, component of their bullpen going forward. I know they were looking to strengthen their bullpen because it'd been like a point of weakness. How damaging is this to the Jays, Sajeevan?
I think Kirby Yates' injury was pretty big. They had him high as the closer, expecting about maybe 25 to 30 saves. But it was something that needed to be considered, considering that he didn't play a full season last year as well. And now he comes in, you have him as this big name, and before the season starts, he's already injured and he's out for the season. So I think it's a big blow. There's other guys that have to step up. But again, I said this in the last episode, the Jays are not a winner yet. There's so much more that they have to do. And the signings, I mean, it's putting in the right direction, but is it a winning team? No. I think we're going to make a bit of noise, but not too much.
See, the interesting thing about the Kirby Yates signing was, given, to Sujeevan's point, given the injury history that he had last season, there were reports that came out that said that Shapiro and Atkins actually knew that he had some issues with his arm. So this was already something that was known during his physicals, during his throwing sessions, that he had injuries related to his right forearm all the way up to the elbow. So this was a risk that they knew, because their two top suitors were actually the Jays and Alex Anthopoulos and the Braves. And apparently, if he passed through that physical, he was going to get $8.5 million. But because they knew of his injury issues, Anthopoulos and the Braves dropped out, lowered the asking price, which is why Shapiro and Atkins took the risk and signed him for $5.5 million. Just a little bit of tad bit of information for you guys, but like that's something that I found interesting. So if they knew about his history, why take that risk? Even though it's $5 million, that's still $5 million that you could have allocated somewhere else, right?
Because it's Shapiro. I can give you the answer right there. It's Shapiro
Exactly.
and Atkins. Like, what kind of answer are you expecting? These guys like allocate money to things that don't make sense. Like,
see, the thing is, I like the signing. I think you like the signing too, but like the fact that I found out that, hey, they knew about this injury, that kind of makes me wonder, what were you guys doing? If you knew, why are you offering him $5 million? Just drive his price down even more and make him earn it in bonus money rather than giving him $5 million up front.
No, I think like the signing in terms of the impact player he is fine, but I think again, $5 million is way too much for him. Like, I think you should have gave him like a 1 year, like give him like a lower deal.
Yeah.
Say, okay, prove yourself this year because you didn't do it last year, and then we can give you that big money that you expect. And Anthopoulos stepped out and he went elsewhere. And right now, the Braves are looking a lot better than the Jays.
Well, I want to get something like so here we also have Springer, who obviously was the big signing of this whole free agency for the Jays, and he was going to be basically the leader going forward. Now that he's out, do you think that Marcus Semien signing, that a lot of people thought that, oh, we didn't need this Marcus Semien signing because clearly hitting is not our biggest issue. Do you think now it's looked at as, oh, wow, like, thank God they did that deal?
I'm not I'm not gonna say Simeon's contract signing is that big. I think it's just another year for Bo Bichette and Vladdy to step up. Vladdy is saying he's ready. He's hungry for this competition and fighting for that spot. He wants to be that big name guy. Um, George Springer was taking that light away from him, but now it's back. The spotlight's back on Vladdy and Bo. I think those two guys have to step up. Kevin Biggio is going to be another guy that's going to have to be consistent. I think Simeon can just be the veteran guy or guy that has more experience that just molds them, kind of
Yeah,
like what Russell Martin did back 5 years ago. But I'm not
yeah. And I
saying
wanna
thank
and
God
and
we got Simeon.
and I wanna ask, do you think the Marcus Simeon, which Marcus Simeon are they gonna get, Sandeep? Are they gonna get the one that had what come third in MVP voting, or are they going to get the Marcus Simeon of last year who kind of struggled and kind of all the other years too as well?
I mean, spring training is always a hit or miss. He's having a decent spring, but I think he's not going to be reflective of the Marcus Semien of last year. I think he's going to go back to the 2019 version that we saw. You're not going to get the average from him. That's something that I think Jays fans, people that are watch the Jays, have to remember. He's not an average hitter. He's all about the power, and I think that's all you need in this lineup. I think we have a well balanced lineup from 1 to 9. Um, I think the things that you take away from Semien are definitely his home run hitting and his ability to be a leader, as you said, on and off the field. And I think he's already had that great relationship with Bo Bichette, him and Bo up the middle. They seem to be working great so far defensively. And that's one thing, the glove, right? It's not also about the bat, it's also the glove that he brings forth. So, and just to quickly add, I don't think that Springer injury is as serious as we think. I think the Jays are just being very cautious with it. I think he's going to be ready to go opening day on April 1st. So I think the fact that we have so much balance in our lineup, I'm not too worried, but obviously would prefer to see Springer play opening day.
And the third base situation, the infield situation, actually, obviously, Vladdy has said he's lost the pounds. He's a lot more fitter. He believes that he can go back to third base and be the third base that he was. The Jays obviously want to play him at first base, but then they got Rowdy Tellez also, who played really well last year, and they believe he should get some time at first base. Obviously, Kavan Bijo can play third base as well. So, Jeevan, how you kind of see this whole infield situation play out?
I think Vladdy has shown signs in his first year that he can play third. He has the arm. And at that size, he was still fairly quick. And if he's saying he dropped all his pounds, I mean, for a big guy to lose so much weight, it makes a big difference. They're a lot faster. Um, their movements on the field would be a lot quicker, and when you feel lighter, you have a lot more confidence. So I think giving him a chance at third wouldn't be a bad thing, especially with, I mean, it's a 162 game season, right? It's not like last year where you can't take a risk with a short season. You have a full season this year. Um, Trying him out in third is not a problem. And if he has to switch back to first or even DH with figuring out with Rowdy and him, that's something I could do. But Kevin Biggio offers something that not a lot of the players can do, where he can play pretty much anywhere on the field. So if it doesn't work with Vladdy, you have that option there.
Well, I want to definitely go back to the Jays here. They today they lost to New York. I think Torres got a few home runs in there in today's game. But look, if fast forward to kind of the season, Hyunjin Ryu, I think we got today the news that he's going to be the opening starter. With the way the pitching rotation is, do you think the Jays? Do you think they still stand much of a chance against a team like, say, the New York Yankees in their own division?
It all comes down to injuries. I think that's always the case with baseball, right? I think the Yankees are still going to be the powerhouse, but if injuries really rattle the Yankees, I think the Jays stand a chance. And I agree with Sajeevan on the point of the Jays are there, but just not there yet. I think they're going to contend. Um, I won't be surprised if they finish first, but I'm predicting more of a wild card finish for them or falling second in the East. But that's all comes down to injuries. I know we've been hit with injuries and there have been minor injuries so far. But it's going to come down to, honestly, the magic of Pete Walker. I know I've said that, I believe, in the early season preview. He just has this magic in him that helps pitchers regain their form, their control, their consistency from their pickup when they're pitching off the mound. I mean, he has these small, finer details that help transform these pitchers into becoming at least average. We've seen that with Robbie Ray and Steven Matz. I mean, they've had outstanding springs, like really good springs that give Jays fans hope. But I mean, it means absolutely nothing until you hit the field on day one and you can consistently perform from game one to game 162.
Well, and this is a thing I want to mention too. I think the Jays, you can never count out, first of all, Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay is always there. They always have a solid team no matter what. Their pitching is always top notch. So I think they can't even be taken for granted. And but I think just the way baseball is this year. I mean, right now the Jays, they said that they're not going to be opening the season. I think in Toronto, it's obviously they're going to be in uh Dunedin. I think they're going to start the
Yeah.
season, right, and then go to Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be very, very interesting for sure. Well, I want to get started on the real reason we're here. It's the NBA trade deadline that just happened on this Thursday. And as you can see, I got a jersey of a very special person who did not get moved. I think this is the first time we've seen a trade deadline where the topic of conversation is somebody who is not moved rather than the person who is moved. And that is Kyle Lowry. He's the person of focus today. But actually, today we got some big news. LaMarcus Aldridge goes to the Nets. They seem to be like Thanos, right? They're collecting everybody. They got Blake Griffin. They got now the other day. I think actually now there's rumors of Andre Drummond. It seems like they're getting everybody. So Aldridge, Griffin.
Lloyd, where are you getting your sources from?
Yeah, I know. You got to hear from
You gotta hear from
Woj.
Mir
Honestly,
Sajeevan,
that's
man.
it. Where are your sources? And we never said that.
We
He's
never
going to
said
the
that.
Lakers.
I don't know. I think I saw it somewhere today. LaMarcus Aldridge to.
If it didn't come from us, then don't believe
Well,
it.
no, we're talking about the Drummond. You got the
Oh no,
Aldridge. We're talking about
Drummond
yes.
is. Well, Drummond has been rumored also to other teams too. He's been rumored to the Lakers as well.
he's going to the Lakers.
He's
We'll
going
talk
to
about
Lakers.
that.
He's just playing with everyone right now.
He's going
He
to the
said
Lakers.
he's going to listen to everyone, and then he already knows his decision is the Lakers.
LeBron's already taken him out to dinner. He's already done the wine and dine with Drummond. It's over.
But think of it this way. Okay, so I understand that Drummond, his best fit actually would be the Lakers, but imagine if he did just stay in the East and he just signed up with Brooklyn and just said, why go through all of that hell that teams go through in the Western Conference? Let me just stay in the East, stay with Brooklyn. I have an easy path. At this point, Brooklyn, it seems like the easiest road to the championship.
It is, but the guy is still young and he wants his bag. He wants the payday. If he goes and plays with LeBron and Anthony Davis, he's going to get that contract. He doesn't want to be the fourth, fifth option behind the Nets. He wants to at least be the third option in a big three. And that's why the Lakers are the best fit. I don't know how Sajeevan feels, but 100% Lakers. I mean, Miami's not bad, but like I don't see him fitting Miami. I see him fitting the Lakers a bit more. I was hoping Aldridge would go to Miami, but that's a topic for another day, maybe.
No, I think it's clear that Drummond is that perfect fit for that Lakers team. last year or the year before, Lakers tried getting DeMarcus Cousins and hoped that he would be that person. And due to injuries, he didn't get to play. But Drummond being a healthy person, and Lakers really don't have a third option right now. And if Drummond being that guy, Drummond and Anthony Davis on the court, no one is driving into the paint.
But here's the thing: DeMarcus Cousins is more of a 4. Like he could play with Anthony Davis being at the 5. Drummond is a pure 5. I mean, I've never seen him play the 4 ever. So if he's going to stay at the 5 and Anthony Davis is at the 5, do you think like the Lakers essentially isn't?
Well, Anthony Davis can stretch the floor. He can hit the 3 ball. He can shoot mid-range jumpers. He doesn't need to play in the paint.
Yeah, and he doesn't play the 5 too, right? I mean, he was playing with Gasol this whole time, so he prefers playing the 4 because of that reason, stretching the floor, right? And Drummond's not the people get confused. I don't think Drummond's the best defender. I mean, his defensive inabilities are going to be washed away because he has Anthony Davis and LeBron making up for his mistakes. So all this guy needs to do is grab boards and put it back. Exactly. Run and jump, get those scrap plays, put it back in the basket, and rebound. That's all he's going to be asked for.
He's going to be what DeAndre Jordan was when he was with the Clippers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking though. Like if you went to the Nets, you have DeAndre Jordan who's already at center, and DeAndre Jordan isn't the same Jordan that he was maybe 5 years ago with the Clippers when he was probably one of the better defensive players on their team and holding their team together defensively. I think like he is a bench player. Don't you think like Drummond would just slot in right there in the starting lineup?
I don't think he fits with that Brooklyn team. Yeah. I think there's too much going on in that Brooklyn team. They haven't played with all 5 of those all-stars yet, and who knows when they'll get them back.
It was crazy. I saw a highlight of the Harden throwing an alley-oop to Blake Griffin.
Blake?
Yeah. And Blake was just giving it to the Pistons bench. But I was just like, the first comment actually when you go on the video is, wow, I can't believe I would ever imagine James Harden throwing an alley-oop to Blake Griffin, considering all the years they played against each other in the playoffs and whatnot. It's incredible that they all landed now on the same team. Moving on to that though. So yes, Kyle Lowry, he decides to stay in Toronto, and that's the biggest news of the whole NBA trade deadline. I think it was it was different leading up to the day, right? So there was a point in time where I think the team did really well and they kind of were in the mix in the playoffs, and people were like, nah, he's not going to get traded. And that losing streak happened, and everybody and their dog was like, well, Kyle Lowry's not going to be here past the NBA trade deadline. And I think you could see it in his body language. You could see it in his media interviews and whatnot. He was kind of accepting finality, if I'm right. Like he really was looking to say goodbye. And obviously, when he was going to the locker room, he pulled up the peace signs, and I think people thought that was it, but he stays on. I don't know how to ask this, Sandeep, but I'm just going to ask the same question. Do you think the Raptors are doing a mistake by not trading Kyle Lowry?
This one's a tough one because the way I looked at it is I think the ball was in Kyle's court, and I think Masai and Bobby 100% respected whatever he decided to do just because of his legacy with this organization. Obviously, teams were supposedly or reportedly lowballing their offers. And I think Kyle wasn't happy, and he didn't want to go into a situation where he felt that he would leave the Raptors empty-handed. And I think he also respects Masai and Bobby. I think they've established and built a relationship of trust. I know you can go to the DeMar days and that relationship, but I think Kyle has established trust. And I think that he was willing to accept the fact of, I don't mind being in Toronto. If it means me not playing for a contender, that's fine. I've won my ring. I'm happy here. I was open to moving, but I'm also open to helping these guys grow and develop their game in the long run. And I think it's not the worst case scenario for the Raptors. I know people are like, you should have gotten assets. He's going to walk away in free agency. But I think there's actually some good backup plans and options for the Raptors to actually assess. And I mean, option A is obviously he walks for free. Option B, you look at a sign and trade. I mean, that's still not out of the question. Or the option C is just re-sign the guy. I mean, we've seen him sign 1-2 year deals before. I
Yeah,
easily
but
think,
that came at a different time though. They were contending at that time,
but the
right?
thing is, the media is reporting Kyle wants to play for Philly. But who really knows what Kyle Lowry wants, right?
Well,
What if?
I want to get to that one like right later on, but
Okay,
you definitely brought that up. Like Kyle Lowry, definitely there's a chance that he might resign, and he said that he's open to it. He says he loves the city, and he quote unquote when his career ends, he wants to retire as a Raptor. I think he sees this as his legacy has been cemented with this team, regardless of what was going to happen. But I want to say this. Okay, so the clear talk, with Masai Ujiri after the trade deadline and Bobby Webster, they both kind of acknowledged that they went into the day knowing that there was a possibility that they were going to trade Kyle Lowry. I think it's fair to say that they got they tried to assess their options and see what they could get for Kyle Lowry, and it seemed like the offers weren't good enough to trade away their best player. I want to ask this to Sajeevan. Is this a case of like the Raptors value Kyle too much, or do you think the rest of the NBA doesn't value Kyle enough?
First, I want to point out that out of the three of us, I was the only one that said Kyle's staying. You guys were already accepting that he was going to be traded the night before.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Lloyd, I understand you're wearing that jersey, but let's acknowledge who was actually the true
Hey,
Kyle Lowry here.
the man not pulled one peace sign. He pulled
I
two.
don't know. You guys are over analyzing every small thing. He could probably sit one way on his chair and be like, "Oh, he's looking towards the door. He wants to leave." Like
Yeah,
I don't
but the
know. That's
GMs they did say that they were
I
gonna
mean,
trade
we're
him.
in the right space to think that way, right? I mean,
yeah, but
it's hours before the trade deadline. There's all these reports coming out. That he's cemented a legacy, but at the same time, he's a guy that's an incredible player that deserves to continue to win. So that's why Lloyd and I were like,
yeah,
if
but
he goes to Philly
how
or if he
many
goes to
times has
Miami, we're still gonna love Kyle. We're rooting for him to win again.
yeah, but how many times has Kyle been in the situation? He was supposed to be traded for Mike Conley. It didn't happen. You guys were like, "Oh, he's gone.
Oh no, I hated that trade
We got Mike
offer. I
Conley
hated that
now.
one.
This and that." And then I'm like,
That
"No."
was all That was all Lloyd. That was all Lloyd.
Like,
I was not on that ship,
I'm not
man.
gonna lie. I still think that would have been an awesome trade for Mike Conley, but hey, we won the chip, so I don't care. Well, that came after the chip, right?
Yeah.
That
that
came that summer after the chip.
no, it was
I
before.
It was before. It was the season.
Before we
before.
won.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I mean we won the chip, so he shut me up pretty good also. I mean, I've got a bit. See, I've got to admit it. I'm as big of a Kyle Lowry critic as anyone. It's not to say that I'm just being mean to the guy. I think that he's what I call, and this is a really good trait to have. I think he's the one of the biggest overachievers I've ever seen in the NBA, bar none. Like this is a guy who's not the fastest. He's not the biggest. He doesn't have the most athleticism. Like he's not the best at anything he does, but his heart and his will to win, he overachieves more than he should have. And like the very fact he ended up with the title. I mean, yeah, you could say Kawhi Leonard and whatnot, but just he overachieved way beyond his means. I mean, if you can get a player of really good quality for him, you take it. But I mean, the man has meant so much. I don't know, but
But I
I
don't know.
agree.
To answer your question of whether or not the Raptors were too high on Kyle Lowry, I think no. I think they were exactly where they should have been. Because if you go back like 6 years, if I'm correct, Kyle Lowry was supposed to be traded for Iman Shumpert and a first round pick.
That was
And
the
that
one with
didn't happen.
was it the one that James Dolan nixed the trade, right?
James Dolan stepped out, and he's like, because he already got snaked for Andre and Bargnani. He's like, he didn't want to like go through that, so he backed out of Iman Shumpert and a first round pick for Kyle. Kyle ends up losing all that weight that summer. He turns into this new player. He becomes an all-star. He's changing the culture in Toronto. Then you have another offer where it's Mike Conley now and whoever. And that still doesn't happen. And then Kyle goes and in the playoffs plays unreal. He wins us game 6. So now like Masai is thinking, okay, this guy, when it comes to playoffs, he can win games. Like, yes, Kawhi was huge for us, but like everyone was bashing Kyle up until that point.
That championship does not happen without Kyle.
Like that's like Kyle did so many things, and that leadership aspect.
Yeah.
Masai to say, I want 2 first round picks for sure, and I want 2 like young talent. I thought like I even thought the Philly deal was not enough. I thought there should have been more to it because I value Kyle so much because of what he did for this city and how he plays every single game. You don't see him any game go and not like give it his all. And if he went to Miami, him, Jimmy Butler, Bam.
Well, I want to get to that. I want to get to that right now. So so we talked about the team that didn't make the trade, say the player that did not move, which is Kyle Lowry. But let's also talk about the teams that did not trade for Kyle Lowry, right? So we have Miami, we have Philly, late in the mix. I don't know how the Lakers come into the mix, but I'm pretty sure those are all.
That was all for show. That was just all for show. I don't buy the Lakers offer, but yeah.
No, it had to be for sure because they just came out of nowhere in the morning, and I was like, where did they come from? But the Philly goes with George Hill, and Miami goes with Victor Oladipo. I want to start with the Oladipo angle with Sajeevan. Do you think that was the right move, or should they have thrown caution to the wind and said, you know what, we need to go for this. Let's go with Kyle Lowry.
I love Kyle, and I want it and I'm a Miami Heat fan. As much as I would love Kyle on the Miami Heat, I want him to stay in Toronto. I want him to finish his career in Toronto. And if I look at it from a Miami Heat standpoint, Tyler Hero played an unreal first year. Yes, he's having a sophomore slump right now, but he can turn it around. You can't give up on a guy like that so early. And I said it before the trade deadline, that no deal is going to happen between the Toronto Raptors and the Miami Heat. Both Masai, Bobby, and Pat Riley are 2 guys known in this league to want to take every single ounce from you while giving you as minimal as they can. They wouldn't give you these blockbuster deals. Like if you say, okay, I'm going to give you like LeBron James, Masai or Pat Riley would be like, okay, I'll give you like a 2nd round pick and like Norman Powell. Like they won't give those big pieces.
But
they want to take every single piece from you. So Pat Riley was trying to take Kyle Lowry from Masai for nothing. And Masai was trying to get Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and picks from Pat Riley. And those 2 were just butting heads. So obviously that deal wasn't going to happen. And then Pat Riley flipped it around, went to Houston, and gave him Kelly Olynyk, Bradley, and a first-round pick swap for Victor Oladipo. Yeah. Avery Bradley wasn't even playing.
That's an expiring contract. And
Kelly Olynyk is an expiring contract, and a guy who doesn't rebound, who doesn't score as much, and a first-round pick swap. We still have our first-round pick. We're just swap. Houston just chooses. I want Brooklyn's or I want Miami's first-round pick. That's it. And
Absolutely.
we're getting a guy. Yes, he's not in the all-star shape he was before, but when he's on, he's going to be a third option, maybe
Okay,
even fourth if Tyler Hero steps up.
I want to say this though. Okay, so here's the thing. Like Tyler Hero, last year he was balling. I mean, he really was. And yeah, he's going through a bit of a slump right now. I think that still if you look at Tyler Hero, yeah, some people say he is the future of Miami basketball. Like Jimmy Butler's the guy now, but Tyler Hero is the future. That's what some people believe. But I mean, wouldn't you think, Sujima, that like Kyle Lowry is made for Miami Heat, like Eric Spoelstra basketball?
Miami Heat basketball is pretty much you play with a chip on your shoulder and you play as if you have something to prove. And Kyle fits that 100%. He would be there. Him and Jimmy Butler will be a problem on the defensive end. And then you throw Bam in there as well. Like they would have been a problem. And it's pretty much adding Kyle Lowry to a championship team. Sorry, the finals appearance team from last year. And if you put Kyle last year in that finals with the Miami Heat, Miami's beating the Lakers.
Yeah, because definitely, I mean, if there's anybody who can solve that Lakers defense, it is one of the best facilitators in the game. I want to go with this, Sandeep. Philly obviously did make the move. I was stunned that Philly didn't make the move and said chose to go with George Hill. I mean, you're looking at Miami, obviously, on one end of the spectrum. You're looking at Brooklyn. You got these two big problems in the Eastern Conference. You're right now having an MVP season from Joel Embiid. You are first in the league. Don't you think they should have thrown caution to the wind and try and trade for their native son, Kyle Lowry?
100%. I think Philly made a huge mistake by not going in. I mean, George Hill's a great addition, but he's not starting point guard caliber that's gonna push you in the playoffs to win. I hope he proves it wrong, but I see him more as a bench addition. I mean, you missed out on having a guy who lives, breathes, grew up in Philly. He has that Philly mentality. I know Miami has their culture, but I think Kyle's the type of guy you need to push Philly over the bump. They've had years of playoffs where they've just been pushed out, second round, first round, and you finally have the ability and the chance to add a guy, and you don't make that move, especially with Joel Embiid, who's having a career year. This is like, I mean, the year they had Jimmy Butler and they lost to the Raptors in the second round, that was probably projected to be their year for the taking. And now
Oh,
you have a
they would
chance.
have gone to the finals for sure.
Exactly. Now you have a chance to do that by adding a six-time All-Star point guard, and you failed to do it because you didn't want to give up a young point guard, a guy in
Tybo.
a guy in Tybal who's like eighth in your rotation, who doesn't get minutes, and a first-round pick, and maybe like Danny Green and someone else's salary fillers. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Like,
that was a bad move. And I mean,
that was a bad move. And apparently, they're saying that Daryl Morey never even engaged with Masai. I mean, I think this is Philly just making up reports to cover their asses. But this is another tough-minded GM. He's not up to the levels of Masai and Pat Riley, of
you
course.
would have
But
thought that you would have thought that Maury would be a lot more aggressive in the trade market, because I mean, if you look at it, this is kind of he was in the Western Conference for all these years with Golden
yeah,
State over there,
yeah.
and him trying to get over that hump, it never happens. He comes to the East, and now you got this new Golden State in like the Brooklyn Nets. And you would think that, like, hey, I better get them now before they really get started, because next year Brooklyn's going to be even crazier.
I think he, I think he's gonna realize that mistake if they get bumped out of the playoffs this year. But just looking at Philly, like let's switch that topic. I know we were talking about Philly and thing, but going back to Kyle, I think Miami and Philly look at the offseason and they actually think that there's a better chance of just signing him as a free agent,
Yeah,
right?
but it goes back to this, because like you think about it, the Raptors, they won a championship by throwing caution to the wind, because we all get complacent, and they could have been complacent, taken 5 years of DeMar DeRozan and compete. Like we would still be competing right now in the playoffs if you had DeMar DeRozan, but they threw it. That was 5 years away for 1 year of Kawhi Leonard and winning a championship, which they did. I mean, you would think that, I mean, they have to throw caution at the wind for this because it's probably like their best chance. I'm amazed. I'm amazed. I mean, but let's talk about the a guy who did get dealt, Norman Powell. So it was a trade for Trent Jr., Gary Trent Jr., and Rodney Hood. Um, at first, when I first saw it, I thought, okay, one wing for two wings. I mean, if wing specials work like that at the restaurant, that'd be really good. But Norman Powell was having a really good season. I think Toronto knew that they were not going to be able to sign him. Like, he would not pick up his player option. They're probably not going to be able to sign him. So they let him go. That's one less person from the championship squad. Now, this championship squad is getting smaller and smaller. Thankfully, Kyle is still there. But first, let's start with Norman Powell, Sajeevan. Do you what do you think you Raptors fans will miss him?
Um, I think he gave a lot to Toronto, but me personally, I wasn't a huge fan of Norm. I
Because you
think
don't understand the grind, man. You don't
the
understand.
grind, the grind is the guy that's wearing number 7 on the Raptors. That's the grind. The guy that shows up every single day, gives everything on the line. There's games that Norm Powell didn't even show up. I think Norm Powell was supposed to be this guy. We drafted, like, we got him. We traded and got the pick from Milwaukee. Got him. This guy was supposed to be like a scorer. He's supposed to be like somewhat of an elite scorer, model off DeRozan. And when we lost DeRozan, we got Kawhi, but we're like still like, okay, we have Norm Powell too, who can come off the bench, score. And I think what he should have been is pretty much even like a poor man's Lou Williams. Come off the bench and control that bench dynamic. And it wasn't until that championship run that he actually did something. Yes, he had one or two playoff series the years before, but what is one or two playoff series doesn't make a whole career. If that was the case, Kyle Lowry didn't show up in the Washington series when we got swept. Same with DeRozan. And then are you going to say just because of those series they're nothing? Like, just because Norm Powell performed in one series doesn't mean he's that great. He was supposed to be a consistent guy throughout. And I keep referring him back to Terrence Ross, who was supposed to be this big guy that we were supposed to have. And I'm sorry, but Norm didn't perform on a consistent basis for us. For us to miss him that much, I think, like, if the Toronto Raptors can get over missing out on DeRozan, and I mean, I think there's going to be more sympathy for DeRozan versus Norm, because DeRozan was another guy that grinded it out, put everything on the court. He did everything for the Raptors. But Norm, I'm sorry, he's not that guy that did everything for the Raptors.
I will say this though. I mean, yeah, I was there for those Indiana series. I remember the game 7 when we beat Indiana in 2016 for the first playoff win. But, even for us to get that game 7, I think it was game 3, or yeah, I think it was the game 3 if I'm right. Where, or game 4, I can't remember. It was the one where Toronto was down like 27 points and there was no way on earth they were gonna. I think if both Tim and Sid were halftime analysts and they were losing their minds. Like, they thought that, Toronto was not gonna win that game. They were gonna go down 3-1 or whatnot, and it's gonna be another playoff loss. And it's another exit, and that's it. Our whole team is going to get blown up. Everybody was losing it, and then Norman Powell came and stepped up and somehow got that win, and that led to our first playoff series win. um
But does that mean he's like his all-time great Raptor?
no, but that
What?
moment of him stealing that ball, going down the court and dunking it, I mean, that's
Superman
classic.
dunk. That's the
That's
classic.
Superman dunk. It inspired a Drake album.
Okay, it's a monumental play, but for me, a guy to be missed on a team, you have to be a guy that showed up every day, grinded it out. I think if Fred got traded, I would have missed Fred more than Norm. Even if Fred was like he just came into the system, I would miss him more because you see this guy put everything on the court. Every single game he showed up. He came off the bench. He outplayed a bunch of players. And he's undersized. He had to match up with so many different players. He ended up getting the starting position and he's balling out. But
Yeah.
Norm, he all of a sudden contract year, he starts showing up.
Yeah,
Like
no,
and
it's not, and it's a lot of those wins they came obviously during a time when, like, I'll be honest with you, if it weren't for Norman Powell, we probably would be having an even worse record, but or at least the losses would be a whole lot more bad. But it's not like his 30 points, 20 points a game was creating wins, because we did lose like 9 straight. I can't blame that all on him, but I will say this: he's now going to Portland. You've got Lillard, you've got CJ McCollum, and now you have Norman Powell. That trio, how do you think that's going to fare for Portland?
I think Portland's in a win now mode, and I think this move was a win now because they know that Dame's loyal, but how loyal can that be in terms of winning, right? I mean, loyalty is great, but at the same time, ownership, and I think that whole organization wants to make that impact to win. I
Do
mean,
you think this moves the needle?
I don't think it moves the needle. They have a lot of depth. So that's something you have to consider. Not only have Dame and CJ, but you have Robert Covington, who's a outstanding, probably one of the best 3-and-D guys. You got a powerhouse in Cantor and Nurkic. I think Nurkic is always going to be the starter. Cantor is going to come off the bench. And then you add Norman Powell. If you have droughts in scoring, this is a guy that could kind of be that third option when it comes to scoring as well, right? I mean, I know Nurkic is part of that big three, but Powell is just a great addition. I think Blazers fans got really hung up on Trent, but what was that sign? The Gary Trent?
Melo, bro. You
Oh,
forgot
I
Melo.
know. I'm gonna get to Melo. Melo is just a great veteran, veteran piece to the lineup. But I think Norm is just a great scoring option. Melo, I love him, but he can get streaky, and I think age is getting
What
to him. But
there's because there seems to be a considerable debate about whether this moves the needle or not. But there was definitely, like you mentioned, the Blazers fans were making a big deal about losing Gary Trent Jr. and all of this, who's like 22 years old and still under contract. And um, let me ask, do you think Masai Ujiri made a very good move, Sandeep, in like getting Gary Trent Jr.?
see, at first, I think I was talking to you as well. I was saying, it was a move that kind of confused me because I was at least hoping draft picks, I would not young player, but I would say draft picks or a center coming our way. But when I looked at that move a day later, I could see this speaks Masai and Bobby all the way. They're looking at the cap, and that's their primary focus. They wanted to get a young guy that they know is still raw. He's still developing. He's having a breakout here this year, but someone that they could develop in their system and in their program, and someone that will fit into their cap space as well. So this is a guy who's going to be a restricted free agent, but he's not going to cost you 20 million like Norm Powell will. He's probably going to get just under 10 million, I'm going to predict. But he's a guy that they know they could develop and actually make him into a Norm Powell, if not even better, because he is a 3-and-D guy. He has flashes on the defensive end, so I think he's a
Yeah.
perfect fit for this
And
organization.
I think also another big thing that isn't being talked about a lot is that second player, Rodney Hood. I mean, he can put up buckets too. He can add some depth onto that bench from the wing. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, a few years ago, where he was in Utah and he was one of their primary options. But it seems like a lot of it fell out of line when he went to Cleveland and whatnot. I think there was a locker room situation with Rodney Hood and whatnot, and that's why he was traded away. Um, right. So moving back to the trade deadline and talking about other teams, I want to get both of your input on this one. Who do you think is the biggest winner from this trade deadline? I'll start with you, Sandeep.
Uh, I loved what Chicago did. Um, I have them picked as a winner. I know it's so too early to tell, but I mean, the haul that they got from Vucevic, I mean, you got an all-star center, a guy that is the number 2 to Zach LaVine. I think LaVine has been lacking having a number 2 option. I think it cements him wanting to stay with Chicago as well. And the fact that they gave a 2021, 2023 top 4 pick
Like
protected.
White.
Sorry?
Who what was his name? Wendell.
And Wendell Carter Jr. I mean, Wendell Carter Jr. They touted him as a really high prospect, but he just didn't pan out in their system. He's had a crap year. He's been injured, and they gave up an injury-prone guy who's making over $25 million in Otto Porter, who got waived from Miami. I mean, they absolutely gave them nothing, and they got an all-star center. I mean, I think Chicago finally woke up. Their GM woke up and realized that they need to keep Zach LaVine around. So I think they're a winner in my opinion.
What about you, Sujeevan?
I mean, if I can't say Chicago, I'm going to say Miami. We got a former All-Star that adds a piece to the puzzle and got him for nothing. So if not Chicago, it's Miami for me.
Definitely. And as for me, I think also, Chicago for me has got to be the big one. I think a really underrated move was also Dallas in getting JJ Redick. I think that will, it's not a big star move, but they needed some shooting. And to pair that with Luka Doncic and Porzingis as a shooter coming, off the bench or even starting, whatnot. I mean, that's going to be big. Uh, let's talk about some of the people who, the quote unquote losers of the trade deadline. Any losers? I would start with you, Sandeep.
There's a couple in my mind. I'll start off by saying the Clippers for not addressing their point guard need. I think that's a big loss. You have
But they got Rajon Rondo.
Yeah, but you gave up Lou Williams, who was doing
gave up Lou Williams. And I honestly think the thing is the Clippers are in a tough spot because they put so much of their future in terms of picks to getting Paul George, which messed up any chance they have at working out trades because no team wants to trade if you don't have assets to give up. So the fact that I would say even the Lakers, I think the Lakers will make up for it with the buyout market. So I don't really consider them the big losers, but I would have to say Philly. I mean, just going back, not being able to add an impact player in Kyle. I know that there were rumors that there was never a deal in place, but the fact that out of all the big teams in the East, they haven't made a move, I would pick them as my loser.
Definitely. And what about you, Sujeevan?
For me, again, yes, Clippers. I think they were one team, but other teams I had that I expected to either figure out what they were going to do. I think the Pacers was a team that they were a good team last year. Then now they're out of a playoff spot. I think they're like 10th. So they don't know what's going on with Turner, Sabonis, like Malcolm Brogdon. It's either you get pieces or you start trading them away, and that they were in like the middle ground over there. I think Boston Celtics was a loser to me. Reason being is because they have all these picks and they have like a team that's young and you're not paying much for these guys because their contracts are going to end up soon and you're going to have to start paying them. But you end up giving up Tice, was one of their main rim protectors. You get Fournier, who's, I don't know what he's going to add to this. He's a guard, and you already have Kemba, you have Jaylen Brown, you have Jason Tatum, but you get another guard who is supposed to score. Like, how many people are
Danny Ainge and his picks? It's like Golem and his precious stuff. I mean, it's like he wants.
Yeah, but I mean, I think there's so many big names that Boston could have got. Like, if they got like if you're going for like a guard, like I would have went for Victor Oladipo over Evan Fournier. But I think they should have pushed even harder for Aaron Gordon. and center was an issue for them. And if Vooch was an option, why not give up all those pieces? Like Robert Williams would have been a great trade piece to get Vooch over, and Vooch on the Celtics would have been an instant. I'm saying I would take the Celtics over the Nets any day if you add Vooch on that team.
Definitely. If there's actually one team that I have to say, it's just because of the way they look right now. That's or the Orlando Magic. I mean, I don't even know. I saw their starting lineup the other day, and I'm not even making this up. It was the most patchwork starting lineup I've ever seen. It was
Yeah,
a
but are they really the loser if they get the first overall pick and get Cade Cunningham
yeah, but it's not even that. I think
or
it's
Jalen
just.
Suggs?
I mean,
Yeah, and keep in mind they're probably gonna get those Chicago picks, right? Because it's top four protected, so it's gonna most likely go to Orlando. So they have solid picks.
Well, this is a deep draft, so they can get like solid players.
Exactly.
Here, they're back in it.
And keep in mind, Orlando, yes, they're crap, but their star player is Jonathan Isaac, who's coming back next year from injury. So that's the guy they're building around. So
yeah.
he's their core guy.
No, because I mean, let me see. This was their lineup. So okay, so look at this: Chason Randall, Dwayne Bacon, James Ennis, Cam Birch, or Toronto's own, and Chuma Okeke. I mean, I mean, we compared this to like 10 years ago, when there was Dwight Howard, Rashard Lewis, and all those guys. I mean, this is the I've never. I don't even know how many games they could. I mean, I want to say this though. This is a franchise that constantly like this is a problem sometimes when you're talking about rebuilds all the time and all the time like they keep doing this rebuild like for the last 10 something years, and they're back to another one again under Jeff Weltman. I mean, I don't know if I'm a Orlando Magic fan, if they have any fans, I mean, I'd be frustrated as hell. But
Yeah, but Orlando Magic is pretty much like the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're both the same thing. Like, yeah, they had a superstar and then he's gone, and then now it's a tank. LeBron came to
and
the
one of the other
Cavs,
guys they traded is Aaron Gordon to the Nuggets.
Denver.
I want to talk
Who
about
I
that.
think
Do you
is
think
another winner. I think they need some credit as well. They got Aaron Gordon and they got JaVale. So even if
Gary Clark?
yeah, like
Mhm.
they gave up they didn't give up much. So
Yes. And I don't, and but do you think? I mean, they lost a lot of guys. I mean, obviously Jerry and Grant being one of them. They lost was it like six guys in free agency last year from their team that went to the conference finals. I mean, do you think they can get back there again, Sandeep?
I'm gonna say no. I feel like Denver's that kind of team that has all that potential, but they just can't get over the hump because they're in one of the hardest conferences to ever get through. I mean, I think this year is going to be unfortunately a second round exit for them. I could see a team like, of course, the Lakers will push through, but I could see a team like Phoenix making noise with Chris Paul being the leader now. Or I could even see Portland. I think those are the two teams where I could really see working themselves into a conference final.
Yeah,
Obviously, it depends on seeding, but I can't see Denver doing it this year, unfortunately.
definitely. And I want to move on to the last bit of our show. Let's talk. Let's just finish off this trade deadline. Do your picks change from the preseason predictions of who's going to win the league and whatnot? Do they change after this trade deadline?
I said Miami in the finals, and that's not changing.
What did I say? I can't even recall. I think I said
You
Laker.
got,
I
I said
don't
you
even.
got
Lakers.
Brooklyn going in there.
Probably said Brooklyn based off Kyrie and KD, but
Mhm.
I think Miami's looking good now. Coming out of these, we just
uh,
getting
I
our
mean, I
injured guys back.
And I think as Raptor fans, we're just watching the tank happen, but not tank for Wiggins, but fade for Cade. Fade for Cade.
I don't think we're gonna tank. I think we can like push. Like it's a deep draft. Like if we like the thing is like, are we going to get Cade? Is there a high chance? No. And I think if you're gonna
Like
tank,
if we're within 7, anything is possible, right? You just need those lottery balls to fall, and you
yeah, but
never know.
it's gonna be like what happened to the Leafs, where it hit like both like posts and then come back out.
But the thing is, to your point, it's a deep draft. I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason. I think this is a podcast for another day. But I think Masai. I think a reporter asked him about his future, and he laughed it off. He's like, "The Raptors will be fine," which I think is an indication that he doesn't plan to leave. I think he's looking at a short-term contract to stay. I think he's planning to rebuild this organization up, and then he's gonna show his exit out the door.
Definitely. I think today I was just looking at the scores right now. So yeah, so Leafs did win against the Oilers.
Comeback.
Comeback. We were down 3-1. I was watching that. That was a good comeback.
That was like the comeback. I don't know. I think the best comeback I've ever seen was the one against Columbus in the playoffs.
And you know what? This game was one of those games where Jack Campbell wasn't horrible, but he just was having his unlucky chances, and he felt like he was letting down the team. But the team rallied and had his back, and that's what I loved. I actually saw some heart and passion in the Leafs. They were going through a little bit of a slump, but Jack Campbell, I'm telling you, Freddie better be sweating, because this kid is making him sweat right now. He wants that.
Do you think that's a little bit of overreaction? I mean, this is Freddie we're talking here.
The thing is, I think the Leafs are starting to realize that they could do a 1A, 1B option going into next season, and they might not need Freddie. I think they could run with a Jack Campbell and another.
So Jack Campbell's become the new Dwayne Rolson?
I don't think I don't know. I mean, I know we were kind of shifting away to hockey, but I think the Leafs are probably going to assess and be like, we don't want to pay Freddie more than $5 million. You haven't earned it this season, right?
He hasn't done anything.
I love him. Don't get me wrong, but I think the Leafs are going to be like, hey, Campbell's able to carry us. If we can get a guy like, I'm not saying a Yarrow Halak, but a player or a goalie in comparison to that, a 1A, 1B, that's perfect.
Campbell to making it 6-0. I want to talk about another trade that happened in the NHL. Eric Stahl went to the Canadiens' 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick, heading down to Buffalo. Do you think, to use that word again, do you think this moves the needle for the Canadiens?
I think he's just a piece that, like a veteran piece that they needed. He had success in Minnesota, a bad move with the signing in Buffalo. And I don't know, it was a smokescreen in Buffalo. Everyone thought like Taylor Hall being signed, all this, they were going to be like, I don't know what was going on there, but good for Eric Stahl to get out of that mess. I don't think it moves the needle for Montreal. Toronto's still the best team in the division. Toronto's still going to get out of that division.
And Toronto's going to add someone on the deadline. I honestly think they're going to make a push, and it's going to be a forward. I think they're dead set on getting another forward to add to that core.
Another top 6 forward would be solid for this team.
Definitely. And we've also seen a lot of other activity in the NHL. I know the Sutters are back in Calgary for one. Not that has changed anything. I think the Flames will have to still do a little bit better, but let's there's not much else. I think that there was also the story of John Tortorella. I mean, John Tortorella and Columbus is just absolute fun. I know he totally crapped on Patrick Laine and said that he isn't playing for him at all.
Laine is turning his career into a bust mode right now. I don't know what's going on with that kid, but I hope he turns it around. Yeah. He has so much talent, but he's just, I don't know what hit him. I don't know if he hit a wall in his career, but He just needs to pick his shit up and get back to his form.
I
Do you
always
think? Do
said
you think?
Line was overrated.
Like, do you think it's like the Andrea Bargnani situation, kind of how it was with Toronto, where like you got this really talented guy, the team and the coaches and whatnot, they're basically instructed to say, "Hey, you're good, you're good. You know, don't criticize him. You know, he's always right no matter what, because he's Patrick Laine and he was the second overall pick, right?" And and now it's reached that point where he wasn't doing it for Winnipeg. They move it for he he moves to Columbus, where he has a coach who's not afraid to tell him you're wrong for sure. Um, but does it speak more about Patrick Laine or John Tortorella? Because John Tortorella has a history of this.
I think John Tortorella needs certain type of players to play for him. Patrick Line is not one of them. Um, I think Patrick Line falls under the category of like Phil Kessel, because if you yell at him, he'll get emotional and he won't play well. And that's what happened with Phil Kessel when he was in Toronto. Like Ron Wilson yelled at him and all that stuff with coaching and everything, and he couldn't play. So Patrick Laine is in the bad spot right now, and Columbus is not the answer. Pierre-Luc Dubois is not an answer for Winnipeg either. Like he's not doing anything for them. So I mean, it's not like someone won that trade, but I don't know. John Tortorella can work magic at times, but he needs those certain players that like earn their minutes. And in terms of Tortorella, I think he works well with those guys that want to prove themselves and not those big names, which is why Columbus doesn't have much of a big name player.
Definitely. Well, we've covered baseball, we've covered NBA, we've covered some NHL too. Last but not least, I mean, tonight's a fight night. I don't know, you guys know UFC. We have Miocic
Predators
versus
winning.
and God. What's your picks, guys?
Predators winning.
What
Telling
about
you
you?
right now, Francis is winning.
That's his winning.
I don't know too much about UFC, but I'll go with Sujivan's pick because I trust Sujivan.
There you go. Then he knows.
No, I mean, Ngannou's got a punch and a half. I mean, I remember that knockout he did against Alistair Overeem where he knocked him out cold. But even I'm gonna go with Miocic because, like, I mean, when you look at this guy, he looks like Saint Pierre. Like when you look at guys like George Saint Pierre, John Bones Jones, all these guys, they live for fighting. You can tell this dude, he doesn't even care. He's just doing it to like, hey, put food on the
Yeah,
table,
but
and he goes back to his job of being a firefighter. I mean, that's nuts.
but Francis is bigger. Like he's heavier than him. He has a longer reach, and like when you look for punch, Francis is gonna like every punch that he hits, he's winning. And I don't know if Miocic can last the whole time in there.
Definitely. I mean,
And he's 38 too, right?
he is 38. I mean, I don't know. Like whenever I hear Miocic talk or whatnot, I'm not saying he's not motivated or whatnot, but it just looks like this guy just doesn't care. And those guys are the most dangerous because he's not outwardly, he's not out there trash talking, but when he goes in there, it's clinical. Like I've come here to do business. And if he gets Ngannou to the mat, Ngannou's in trouble because Miocic has really good ground and pound game.
Mhm.
We'll see. We'll see. Big UFC night tonight. Thank you guys for being on tonight. This wraps up our podcast. Hope to see y'all later. I promise you this will not be that the next one won't take as much time. Well, thank you guys for joining me. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Peace.